Hey everyone, True here, and today we are going to make the first data-based Evertale tier list in 2023, taking 100 top teams in Arena from around the world into consideration with my True Power methodology. We are going to go through all the tier changes and the top units, but first, let's kick off with the new units. First up, we have the water unit Tiamat, and while her new skill Genesis really brought something new to the table, she is struggling a bit in today's meta and she's going to B tier for now. The main problem with her is basically this kind of Mori call that is such a big part of her skill set, kind of bringing in spirit for your team, etc. Was kind of, if even if it was already kind of problematic if you're facing Water Snow White, but then just a bit later the newer unit Lancelot released, and she's basically a hard counter to Tiamat. She can easily clean up all these Moris that are coming in with just constantly getting the turn from her deadly momentum. And I think even if Tiamat already had kind of a slow start based on her survivability, that release from Lancelot was kind of a death nail for her performance. But that said, she's still in B tier for now. Let's see where she goes from there, but I can't really see her go much higher, even though she's still quite new. And then, speaking of the devil, we have Lancelot, the new Storm unit that really left a mark on the meta with her Royal Swift Slash, with the Deadly Momentum, with the Endure status that is kind of in there as well. Just a lot of things that are good as well, of course, with the counter skin. So just a lot of good things about Lancelot, and that's why she actually goes to one of the top tiers. Which one that is, we will see later when we go through all the top units. So that is one of the very first units that is going straight into the top tiers. At least in the recent months, we didn't see that yet. And then we have Gawain, who is another water unit that was released straight after Lancelot, also mentioned in the same event as her. And she can also be quite good. I mean, she has the Hold Ground Plus, which is already kind of a property of a strong unit. And then she can also reset her Hold Ground Plus, which is something we, pretty much only saw in Freya so far, where you can, reset the Hold Ground Plus yourself and don't need the help of another unit. So that is why Gawain is actually going to the S tier, which is quite a good start for her as well. And of course, she has the Triumph Battle Cry. She has very strong attack moves, especially straight away from the start. She can already kill, and with that kind of savage cycle, then hopefully make a lot of damage on the enemies while staying alive with her Hold Ground Plus. That is, constantly hopefully reset and fully healed again. So very good stuff from Gawain. Let's see where she can go in the future, but for now, this is the S tier. And I mean, maybe, part of the reason why she's maybe a bit held back is that she's actually a water unit, and we already saw that Lancelot is going into one of the top tiers, and I think something similar could be said for Storm Jeanne. So, with that kind of elemental disadvantage from Gawain, it is a bit hard to go into kind of a Storm meta with a water unit. And so Storm Jeanne, while we don't have enough data on her yet to actually tier her reliably, I think my initial impression of her, if you've watched my review on her on New Year's Eve, you already know that my initial estimate was SSS tier, and I'm still quite positive that she can actually reach that potential. Obviously, what is true for Storm Jeanne is also true for Storm Ludmilla, who was released even later. We don't have any real data on her yet, so it is still remains to be seen where these two units will be tiered in the next edition. Now we are going to go through the tier changes, and we are going to do that in an ascending order. So we will start off with the F tier, which contains units that none of the top teams are using at the moment, none of the 100 teams that I looked at in the different champions arenas. So first we see a few downgrades from the E tier. We have Finn, the original character of the whole game, getting downgraded and not used anymore by anyone. He just pretty much has the stun entry going for him. So yeah, not a big surprise to see him ranking quite low, and similar things are true for Fire Ludmilla, who is also, with the blood, fire, burn kind of skill set, not exactly meta right now. We do have Water Alira, who is suffering from a lack of really good sleep units at the moment. We have the Dark Astrid, who is kind of this general skill set unit, but just overall not really something that is great from an AI perspective. We do have Earth Astrid, a poison unit, also a kind of skill set that is not very well suited for the current meta. And obviously we also already have someone like Dark Ossia, who kind of does everything that Earth Astrid does, but better. And then we do also see Storm Reset, who is a 2.0 unit, landing in the F tier. I mean, she kind of had the stun flash going for her and a bit of stuff with the charges, but she was never a top tier unit in the first place, and now we see much better stun units being released already. And then last but not least, we have Water Elmina, who is this kind of stealth overdrive unit, but yeah, the problem here being that her survivability isn't really that great anymore. Water, as I said before, is suffering from the meta, and also her stealth skill set is a bit dated because it has the long TU we are used to from the older stealth characters. Now on the plus side, we have one promotion from the F tier to the E tier, and that is Light Clarice. She can be a bit annoying to deal with in combination with some other units, although, with the release of Lancelot, all these kind of Mori producing units in the middle are kind of taking a hit. On the other hand, we do have some demotions from the D tier to the E tier, and that is, for example, Fire Antares. I mean, burn units are having a hard time, and she wasn't really that great when she was released in the first place. Joining her is Fire Mysha or Infernal Mysha. Same thing pretty much is true for her. Then we also have Fire Astrid. So as you can see, there's a bit of a pattern here with fire units being demoted, but not only fire units, but also Gaia is getting booted further downwards. Another 2022 unit that isn't really holding up well. I mean, she has an entry effect, so maybe she can profit a bit from the new Storm Jeanne release, but I wouldn't hold my breath for her, to be honest. But speaking of kind of profiting from the new kind of stun storm meta, we do see Altaireon go to the D tier. So that's quite nice. With the stun skin, with the pain spirit, with the pain stun, can do some good stuff. But even more importantly, I think Artimaya is going up to the D tier, and she's really, really good in combination with Storm Jeanne. I can already attest to that from personal experience. So yeah, I quite like to see her rise in the ranks a bit again with that kind of stun entry and spirit entry, which are both things that are kind of nice to have, especially when you use that kind of setback methodology from Storm Jeanne. But of course, there can't be only winners in the D tier, and we do see Bunny Reset drop, this kind of water sleep unit, both of which are not really at the most favorable point right now. We do have Merlin even dropping from B to D tier. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of already showing that she wasn't able to take Storm Rolosha's place, even though she has very similar capabilities. Some might say even a bit better capabilities, but you know, I think she just can't get to use her stun or exit often enough, and in general, it's kind of limited by her AI. So I'm not super surprised, even though maybe, you know, in combination with Storm Jeanne there is some leveraging potential. So let's see how she does in the next month, but for now she is actually dropping to the D tier, and the same is true for Earth Ludmilla. I mean, you know, she is actually of the Earth element, so that is kind of nice to have in the Storm meta, but in general her skill set, even when she was released 1 year ago, was a bit weak after all these meta units came out. And so yeah, not huge surprise here, even though the kind of gift turn plus is still relevant, so kind of nice to have for the support, and at least she does have a hold ground going for her. Now moving on to C tier, and we only have a single change in here, and that is Fire Array dropping from B to C tier. So another fire unit that is down bad, and yeah, that already completes the C tier for us. And so we move on to the B tier, and we also have a few demotions coming from the A tier, and that is first up Dark Snow White. How she has fallen, it is really quite interesting or heartbreaking to see. I mean, when she was released, she was kind of undoubtedly the top DPS in the whole game, but the meta has changed, and this kind of stealthy regeneration passive that she has going isn't really all that great anymore compared to what a lot of the other units feature. And then there's also the problem with kind of being this starter unit, at least, you know, based on her passive, and there's just not a lot of space in the starting four, and there's a lot of units that do a much better job in there, especially considering that her blood assassin, which was really great when she came out, like kind of like immediately ignoring, and you know, on her first turn immediately getting an attack that ignores armor, was really strong back then. Nowadays the meta has kind of shifted at the start. Also dropping a tier is Dark Ossia, a new unit who has yet to see her second banner, but she is in a bit of a tough spot with, you know, all the kind of stealth units, even though she partially can counter them a bit with her taunt. Overall, you know, her skill set, kind of this mix of blood and poison, is just not really in fashion right now. And then we also have Sakura drop from A to B tier, and yeah, I mean, she was always kind of a middle ground unit. Her survivability isn't that great, and also she's kind of good against sleep units with her kind of auto purify, etc. And that isn't that relevant at the moment as well. So that is why I think she might be dropping a bit. That said, still being used by 28% of the top teams. So we are already, you know, in the territory where we see some really good units. And as always, my recommendation is not to pull any units below the B tier. So within the B tier, some arguments can still be made for these units, but everything below I would only pull for fellowships, to be honest. Now in the A tier, the trend of demotion continues, and we do see Light Callen dropping from S to A tier. She has that kind of light speed entry, which I still think is very good, but yeah, sleep isn't really the meta right now. We haven't seen a new sleep unit in quite a long time, and I don't think there will be a very strong one coming very soon. Right now it would make sense to release a really strong Earth unit. There is still some strong sleep units. For example, we can look at the S tier and still see Water Jeanne in there. Light Callen, still a good unit, but not good enough for the S tier anymore at the moment. And the same is true, although a bit preliminary, for Haku. That is a bit surprising to me, but yeah, I mean, she is a great support. She's definitely the probably the best support unit that was released in 2022, kind of the Mirai 2.0, but she has a problem with stealth units, and stealth units are really running amok right now. But still, I mean, let's wait for her to actually get her second banner, and then she should really settle in whichever tier is really her home. But I mean, right now, only 33% of the top teams are using her, and that is why at this point she is falling to the A tier, because after many months, this is not where you would expect a great unit to be. And speaking of which, going into the S tier, unfortunately we have Freya dropping from SS to S tier, and that one is hurting me a bit, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, she is only at 50% usage even after her second banner was released, and yeah, even the kind of resettable hold ground plus can't really, you know, overshadow the fact that Burn is just having a really hard time, even though she can be put into many teams because she's kind of self-reliant. She's not really, you know, kind of a 100% guard, and she is kind of spirit hungry to stay alive. So yeah, this is probably the reason why she's dropping, even though I still think she's a very good unit. Unfortunately, it is not enough anymore for the SS tier. But in the other direction, possibly, we do see Sun Wukong going up into one of the top tiers after a bit of a slow start, to be honest. She's really finding her prime now. I mean, she has the Stealthy Vengeance passive, and we all know how that turned out for Earth Mysha. She doesn't really have a possibility to attack too, but her survivability is still really great, even though her AI is still holding her back. There can an argument be made for her being extremely annoying to kill, because she often gets targeted, and then, you know, kind of when she's right about to die, she does the full charge again, and back and running she is to full health, producing 3 spirits, 3 charges, all this kind of good stuff. So yeah, not a big surprise, to be honest. Just the bigger surprise kind of that it took her so long. And yeah, now she's in one of the top tiers, and now we are right on the topic. Which are the top units? We are going to start with the SS tier, and the first one is Light Mirai. She is still a great support, even with all this kind of stealth shenanigans pushing her a bit back. She's still holding on to the SS tier with her great spirit and healing capabilities. Then we see Sun Wukong, we already talked about her. She's going into the SS tier, and the same is true for Bright Astrid, who stays in the SS tier as previously seen. I mean, the 100% guard is still something that is kind of universally appreciated, even though she sets your team on fire. So that is possibly a bit of a drawback still, I think, given that other burn units are really struggling, except maybe for Fire, Elmina and Freya. Another 100% guard goes to the SS tier, and it's the number 10 Earth Anya, and she's actually one of the very few units in the top 10 that have risen in true power compared to the last month. And the partial reason can obviously be this kind of storm surge that has been happening recently, and with her elemental advantage and the 100% guard and, you know, very high HP, this is actually something that could do quite well against the storm meta, I suppose. And yeah, also, I mean, it is the 100% guard after all, so especially considering the combinations that we probably will see with Storm Jeanne, I don't think her usage will drop that much anytime soon. Currently it is 77%, and the same is true for our next unit, Light Mizuchi, who is still possibly the very best finisher in the whole game. Put her in the 20th position and she can do a lot of good, especially if you put her next to Light Mirai and Storm Antares, who is also, you know, possibly, I think, yeah, she's the oldest unit in the top 10, and she's doing really still quite great for herself with the stun all skin. Even though it runs out after 300 time units, that is still a good feature. And then, you know, potentially having the counter and doing some thunder hearts in the current stun meta can't hurt at all. Next up at number 7, we have Callen, and Callen is really still quite a solid unit. Possibly, you know, if you call her a sleep unit, then she is the best sleep unit in the game. But mainly her use is that kind of disrupting, that kind of spirit producing from her passive. And, you know, the combination, for example, with Lancelot, where, you know, Lancelot goes on a killing spree and Callen supplies her with the spirit to do it from her spirit loot passive, is still great to see. And then, of course, there's the imposter mechanic. Even though, let's keep an eye on that. I mean, Callen was a very great starter unit, but now it is getting again a bit tight in the starting 4 with the new units being released. So let's see how she does in the future. But the hold ground plus mechanic might keep her relevant for quite a long time if we don't see the overpower passive be introduced anytime soon. Now at number 6 we actually have a tier drop, and that is from Dark Jeanne. For a very long time she was in the SSS tier. Being released about 16 months ago, she really set a new example of how fast she got adapted into the meta. Of course, Earth Mysha and Storm Elmina are kind of direct counters to her, and now we see more and more and more and more units that can counter her, ignoring her revenge, and this is why she is getting relegated more and more into the last platoon, and also kind of, you know, possibly benched by some of the top teams. She fell to under 90% usage for the first time in over a year, I think. And number 5, we are getting into the SSS tier, and first we see Water Snow White join the tier. She is still in the SSS tier, great passive with that kind of deadly sleep and counter skin, etc. But of course, it is a bit troublesome that Lancelot is kind of a direct counter to her, so let's stay tuned on her. She already dropped 2 spots. The same is not true for Bright Ludmilla, who is still keeping the 4th position in the top 28 world rankings. Not much to say about her. I mean, she is a unit that has been out for over 1.5 years. Shield of Eldine still going strong. Of course, there are some counters now. If you don't let her get a turn, for example, by Lancelot stunning her before, you know, she gets that turn, then she might be dead in the water. But if she gets her Shield of Eldine down, it's still very, very, you know, helpful for your team. And given that Storm Jeanne is also a bit reliant, I would say, on having some 100% guards coming in, I'm not sure if we gonna see the use of Bright Ludmilla drop anytime soon, even though her utility is getting slightly lower and lower. But yeah, all that said, she has 99% usage rate, so the highest among any of the over 100 units, of the over 100 SSR units in Evertale. So yeah, really deserving of the SSS tier. And then we actually see the new unit Lancelot join into the SSS tier straight away. That is very impressive stuff from Lancelot, really being adapted quite quickly. She has been out about a month and already has a usage rate of 50%. Of course, there's the drawback that she's actually very slow, so if she gets killed straight away, she will be of no use to you, obviously. But as soon as she gets her first turn, or possibly at least her first kill, then she really becomes a menace. And the next 2 positions have remained unchanged. We still have Storm Elmina at 2 and Earth Mysha at 1. Both of these stealth classic units from 2021 still topping the SSR world rankings. I mean, Storm Elmina is suffering a bit, I think, similarly, you know, not quite as bad as Dark Jeanne, but I think she might be going into a similar direction. She's often used together with Dark Jeanne in the later platoons, because, obviously she has to flee from the number one Earth Mysha, who can hit beyond guards, and, with that kind of Survivor's Fury to Stealth Fury to ignoring the passives, ignoring the stealth. Yeah, I mean, there's just not much to say. She still has great survivability, even though, now with the Storm and Stun meta, there is increasing risk that she actually gets stun locked, but there's just no alternative that I see right now to use Earth Mysha. She has 97% usage, and, kind of skipping on her is just not really an option in a meta that is increasingly getting dominated by Storm units. So she can actually, for example, take out Storm Jeanne and Storm Michaela with one strong attack, possibly, Enraged Survivor's Fury, for example, if, Storm Jeanne doesn't have her Endure activated. So yeah, I don't really see any any option besides Earth Mysha right now, and so yeah, this is gonna remain true till probably we see a new very strong Earth unit being introduced, which I would hope that it would actually be Poison, because Poison has been suffering for over a year pretty much at this point. The last really strong Poison unit that came out was Earth Anya over a year ago, and we still don't see much else, and it's interestingly also the only Earth unit besides Mysha that is currently in the top 24. So there you have it, my first tier list from 2023. Over 12 hours go into this production, so I would highly appreciate if you leave a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel to support my work. This time I employed a new methodology that also takes fellowships into consideration, and thus modifying player weights to also reflect expected results to make the true power measure more reliable. I really kind of like to see the even distribution from D to SS tier this time. And yeah, more info in the description. And as always, thanks for watching.